The locker room smelled of sweat and old cleats as Coach Harlan slammed his clipboard down on a bench. Jacob Anderson, you are off this team. We do not need someone like you distracting the squad or giving the town something to gossip about. The words landed like a blindside hit, and Jacob stood frozen in his pads, the number 19 jersey, suddenly feeling like a lie he had worn too long. His teammates shifted uncomfortably, a few looking away while others stared with open judgment because someone had seen the text messages on his phone, the ones meant only for Logan. At 17, Jacob was the best-placed kicker in the division. His leg had carried the Eagles to the state semifinals last season, but none of that mattered now in this conservative Ohio town where Friday nights under the lights were sacred and being gay was not part of the playbook. He swallowed hard, grabbed his bag, and walked out without another word, the metal door banging shut behind him like the end of everything he had built. Outside the stadium, the late afternoon sun hit his face too bright for the darkness swirling inside him. Jacob pulled out his phone, his fingers shaking as he typed the only message that felt real. Meet me at the old practice field in 20 minutes. I need you right now. Logan was waiting when he got there, leaning against the chain-link fence, his dark hair messy from the wind, and his eyes already full of worry, the kind that came from 6 months of stolen moments and whispered promises. Jacob dropped his bag and let Logan pull him into a tight hug, the kind that did not need words at first. They stood there on the faded grass where they had first talked after practice last spring. Logan, the quiet running back who had noticed Jacob struggling with more than just plays. Tell me what happened, Logan said softly, his voice steady like an anchor in rough water. Jacob told him everything, the coach's cold stare, the silence from guys he had called brothers, the way his secret had been dragged into the light without his permission. Logan listened, rubbing small circles on his back, and when Jacob finished, Logan looked him straight in the eye. You are still the same guy who makes those impossible kicks, Jake, and this does not change that. But Jacob was not sure. That night at home, the house felt smaller than ever. His mom met him at the door, her eyes red from crying because the school had already called. She pulled him into the kitchen and hugged him hard, whispering that she loved him no matter what. His dad sat at the table, arms crossed, the newspaper forgotten. So this is why the coach called, he said, his voice flat. Jacob nodded, expecting the explosion, but his dad just stared at the floor for a long minute, then stood up and walked out without another word. The silence that followed hurt more than yelling. Jacob went to his room and sat on the bed, staring at the trophies on his shelf, each one a reminder of the life he thought he had secured. He thought about Logan, the way they had met when Logan transferred from another school, and they bonded over late-night study sessions that turned into something deeper. Logan made him feel seen, not just as the kicker, but as Jacob, the guy who loved sunsets and hated crowds and dreamed of playing college ball without hiding. The next morning at school, the whispers started in the hallway, like a low hum that grew louder with every step. Former friends crossed to the other side of the corridor, and one guy muttered something about the team being better off clean now. Jacob kept his head up, but his chest felt tight like he was running wind sprints with no end. During lunch, he found Logan in their usual spot under the big oak tree in the courtyard. They sat close enough that their shoulders touched, and Logan passed him half his sandwich like it was the most normal thing in the world. You do not have to carry this alone, Jake, Logan said quietly. Jacob managed a small smile, but inside the questions kept spinning. Was coming out worth losing the team, worth the looks from people he had known since kindergarten? The afternoon dragged, and after school, Jacob went to the park alone, at first kicking a ball against the fence, trying to find the rhythm that always calmed him. Logan showed up later, and they walked the trails talking about everything and nothing, the future, the fear, the small joys, like the way Logan could make him laugh even on the worst day. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky orange, Jacob felt a tiny crack in the wall he had built around his heart. Maybe this pain was the price of being honest, but maybe it was also the start of something real. The days blurred after that, with more stares and fewer invitations to hang out. Jacob trained by himself on the empty field, his legs still strong, but his mind heavy with doubt. Logan was there every evening, bringing water and encouragement, reminding him that his worth was not tied to a jersey. One night after a particularly hard practice session, they sat on the grass and Logan shared his own story of coming out to his mom last year, how scared he had been, but how free he felt after. Jacob listened, and for the first time he let himself imagine a life where he did not have to choose between football and love. The misunderstanding came a few days later when his best friend Mike cornered him in the parking lot. You should have told me, man, Mike said, his voice tight with hurt. I thought we were brothers. Jacob tried to explain the fear of the hiding, but Mike shook his head and walked away, leaving another hole in Jacob's already cracked world. That evening, Logan met him at the park again, and they talked until the stars came out, Logan holding his hand in the dark, promising they would figure it out together. Jacob went home feeling a little less alone, but the internal storm still raged. Was he strong enough to keep going, or would the pressure break him? The team lost their next game without him, and the rumors started that coach was second-guessing the decision, but no one reached out yet. Jacob lay in bed that night, replaying the locker room moment over and over, wondering if one truth could really cost him everything he loved. Yet in the quiet, he also felt a small spark of pride for finally being himself, even if the world was not ready. The journey was just beginning, and the road ahead looked long and uncertain, but with Logan by his side, Jacob decided he would keep walking one step at a time. The following week brought more the same isolation at school, but also the first real test of Jacob's family bonds. His mom tried to act normal, making his favorite pancakes on Saturday morning, but her eyes betrayed the worry every time she looked at him. His dad avoided the topic, completely burying himself in work at the auto shop and coming home late. Jacob helped with chores around the house, hoping the routine would ease the tension, but when his dad finally spoke at dinner, it was like a dam breaking. "I did not raise you to throw away your future on some phase," he said, pushing his plate away. "Scholarships do not come to kids who make the team look bad." Jacob felt the words like a punch, but he sat up straighter and met his dad's eyes. "This is not a phase, Dad, it is who I am, and if the team cannot handle that, then maybe it was never really my team." His mom reached across the table and squeezed his hand, tears in her eyes, but she stayed quiet, letting the moment stretch. The conversation ended with his dad storming out and Jacob retreating to his room, where he stared at the ceiling for hours, replaying every game, every practice, every moment he had hidden parts of himself to fit in. Later that night, Logan texted him to meet at the lakeside spot they had discovered last summer. Jacob snuck out after his parents went to bed and found Logan sitting on the dock, the water reflecting the moonlight. They talked for hours, Logan sharing stories of his own family struggles and how his mom had eventually come around. Jacob opened up about the fight with his dad and the fear that he might lose his family too. Logan listened, then pulled him close in a hug that felt like home. "You are not alone in this, Jake, no matter what happens." The next day at school, the bullying escalated when a group of juniors cornered Jacob in the bathroom, calling him names that echoed the locker room rejection. He pushed past them without responding, but the incident left him shaken. He skipped his next class and found Logan in the art room, where they sat on the floor surrounded by half-finished paintings. Logan sketched quietly while Jacob vented, and slowly the anger turned to determination. "I'm not quitting football," Logan said suddenly. "I'm going to keep training, and if they want me back, they will have to ask." Logan smiled proud, and they spent the rest of the period planning how Jacob could stay sharp on his own. That evening they walked the park trails again, hands brushing occasionally in the safety of the trees. Jacob felt the romance in the simple act of being together, without fear. For a few minutes, the world fading to just the two of them. But the reality crashed back when he got home to find his dad waiting in the living room with a serious look. "We need to talk, son." The conversation was long and raw, his dad admitting he was scared for Jacob's future, but also struggling with his own beliefs from the church they attended. Jacob listened and shared his side without yelling, and by the end his dad did not apologize, but he did not storm out either. It was a small step, but it felt like progress. Over the next few days, Jacob threw himself into solo training sessions at the park field, his leg muscles burning as he practiced field goals from different angles. Logan came after his own commitments, bringing snacks and encouragement, turning the hard work into something they shared. One afternoon, after a particularly good session, they sat on the bench watching the sunset, and Logan turned to him with a soft smile. "I am proud of you, Jake, for choosing to be you." Jacob felt his heart swell, and for the first time the internal crisis felt less like a storm and more like a path he could walk. The misunderstanding with Mike lingered, but Jacob decided to give it time, sending a simple text saying he was sorry for not trusting him sooner. Mike did not reply right away, but Jacob focused on the positive, the growing bond with Logan, the tentative understanding at home, and the quiet strength he was discovering in himself. The team continued to struggle in practice, and the coach was seen arguing with the athletic director, but still no word came to Jacob. He lay awake at night thinking about the big game coming up, the championship that could define the season. Part of him wanted to prove them wrong, but a bigger part wanted to prove to himself that he was more than a kicker. Logan stayed over one night with permission from his mom, and they talked until dawn about dreams beyond high school. Logan wanting to study art in college, Jacob imagining playing somewhere he could be open. The conversation deepened their connection, and Jacob felt the love not just as romance but as partnership through the hard times. As the week ended, the pressure from school and family weighed heavy, but Jacob woke up on Sunday, determined to keep moving forward. The journey of growth was painful, but each decision, each conversation, each moment with Logan was shaping him into someone stronger. He did not know what the next week would bring, but he knew he would face it with his head high and his heart honest. The whispers in the hallways turned into open stares by Monday, and Jacob felt every one of them like a weight on his shoulders. He walked to class with his backpack slung low, keeping his eyes on the floor to avoid the groups that used to wave him over. In English, the teacher assigned a group project, and when Jacob was paired with two girls who had once cheered at his games, they exchanged awkward glances but said nothing about the team. The lunch bell rang, and Jacob headed to the courtyard alone until Logan appeared with 2 sodas and a bag of chips. They sat on their usual bench, and Logan asked how the morning had gone. Jacob shrugged. It was fine, but the lie tasted bitter. A group of football players walked by, and one of them muttered something about fairy tales on the field. Logan tensed, but Jacob put a hand on his arm. Let it go. Later that afternoon in the gym for PE, the coach separated the class for basketball, and Jacob ended up on a team with guys who had been his teammates. The game was tense, passes were short, and no one called his name for the ball. When he finally got a rebound and scored, the silence from his side was louder than any cheer. After class, one of the guys cornered him in the locker room. You really think you can just come back, Anderson? Jacob met his eyes and said, I'm not asking to come back. I'm just trying to get through the day. The guy walked away, but the encounter left Jacob drained. He met Logan after school at the park, and they sat on the bench talking about the day, the small victories, and the bigger hurts. Logan shared his own experience with a similar rumor last year and how it had made him stronger. Their conversation turned lighter as they watched kids playing on the swings, and Jacob felt the romance in the way Logan could make the heavy feel lighter. As the sun set, they walked the trail hand in hand for a few minutes until they heard voices and let go. That night at home, his mom asked about school, and Jacob told her the truth. She hugged him and said she had talked to his dad, who was still processing, but trying. The next day brought a new challenge when the school newspaper wanted to interview Jacob about the team loss. He declined, but the reporter persisted until Logan stepped in and said he is not interested. The incident spread, and more people started looking at him with curiosity instead of just judgment. Jacob spent the evening training alone, his kicks sailing through the uprights, but his mind wandering to the future. What if the team never wanted him back? What if Logan got tired of the secrecy? The doubts swirled, but he pushed them down and focused on the feel of the ball, the rhythm of his steps. Logan joined him later, and they practiced together, Logan snapping the ball for him like old times. After they sat on the grass, and Logan said, I love that you are fighting for yourself. Jacob smiled, and they talked about the beach trip they had dreamed of taking after graduation, the one where they could walk hand in hand without looking over their shoulders. The conversation filled him with hope, and a romantic moment under the stars reminded him why he had come out in the first place. The following morning, the bullying peaked when someone left a note in his locker with ugly words. Jacob crumpled it and threw it away, but the hurt lingered through his classes. He found Logan in the art room during free period, and they talked it out, Logan reminding him that the note said more about the writer than about him. They sketched together for a while, Jacob drawing a simple football field, and Logan adding 2 figures walking across it. The small act of creation lifted Jacob's spirits, and he felt the growth happening inside him, the shift from victim to someone choosing his own path. After school, they met at the lake and skipped stones, talking about family, Logan sharing how his dad had come around after seeing how happy Logan was. Jacob opened up about wanting to tell his extended family, but fearing the reaction. Logan listened and offered to be there when he was ready. As they walked back to the car, Jacob felt the bond between them deepen into something solid and real. The week ended with the team losing another close game and the coach seen talking to the principal. Jacob heard the rumors but kept training, focusing on his form and his mindset. The internal conflict was still there, but the support from Logan and the small steps with his family made it bearable. He went to bed that Friday night thinking about the championship game in 2 weeks and wondering if his story was over or just beginning. The choices he made now would shape everything, and he was ready to face them with the strength he was building one day at a time. The betrayal came on Tuesday when Mike finally replied to Jacob's text, but not in the way he hoped. They met behind the bleachers after school, and Mike stood with his arms crossed. I thought we were tight, Jake, but you hid this from me like I would judge you. Jacob tried to explain to fear the pressure, but Mike shook his head. The team needed you, and you let us down by not trusting us. The words cut deep, and Jacob felt the friendship he had counted on slipping away. He walked home alone that afternoon, the autumn leaves crunching under his feet and the weight of the conversation heavy on his chest. Logan met him at the park, and they sat on the bench while Jacob recounted the talk. Logan listened, then said people process things in their own time. Some come around, some do not, but you cannot control that. The conversation turned to their relationship, and Logan admitted his own fears about being fully out, but how being with Jacob made it worth it. They walked the trail, and for a few minutes held hands, the simple contact a reminder of the love that grounded them. That evening, Jacob's mom suggested they have a family dinner to talk, and his dad actually stayed at the table. The discussion was awkward but honest, his dad asking questions about how long Jacob had known and his mom sharing stories of her own youth. Jacob felt a crack in the wall, and by the end his dad said, "I'm not saying I understand, but I'm not walking away either." It was not perfect, but it was progress, and Jacob went to bed feeling a little lighter. The next day at school, the attitude from some classmates shifted slightly, a few guys nodding at him in the hall instead of looking away. But the pressure remained when the coach announced tryouts for special teams, and Jacob wondered if he should go. Logan encouraged him during their lunch meeting under the tree, saying it could be a way back, but only if he wanted it. They spent the afternoon at the field, Jacob kicking and Logan watching the sun warm on their faces. The romantic moment came when they paused and Logan said softly, "I am in this with you all the way." Jacob felt the affection in the words, and they sat in the grass talking about the future beyond high school. The misunderstanding with the team captain came next when he approached Jacob in the parking lot. "We miss your leg, man, but the coach says no exceptions." Jacob nodded and walked away, but the encounter left him questioning his place. He trained harder that night, pushing his limits until Logan arrived with water and a smile. They talked about the betrayal with Mike, and Logan shared a story of his own lost friendship, making Jacob feel less alone. As the week progressed, the school buzzed with championship talk, and Jacob felt the pull to be part of it. He decided to approach the coach after practice, and the conversation was short, the coach saying he was thinking about it but needed to see commitment. Jacob left with mixed feelings, but Logan was waiting, and they celebrated the small step with a walk in the park, the leaves falling around them like confetti. The family dynamic improved when his dad came to watch one of Jacob's solo sessions and even offered a few tips on form. It was not forgiveness, but it was effort, and Jacob appreciated it. The internal crisis eased as he realized his identity was not a flaw but a strength. The days led to the weekend and a rare day off where Jacob and Logan drove to the lake with permission and spent the afternoon talking and laughing, the water sparkling in the sun. The romantic connection grew in the quiet moments, and Jacob felt the joy of being seen and loved. Back at school on Monday, the team was struggling in practice, and the coach called Jacob in for a meeting. The discussion was tense but hopeful, the coach admitting the team needed his accuracy. Jacob agreed to a trial but made it clear he would not hide who he was. Logan cheered the news that evening, and they planned training sessions to prepare. The betrayal from Mike still stung, but Jacob chose to focus on the future, the growth, the relationships that were strengthening. The week built toward the big game, and Jacob felt the tension rising, but also the excitement of possibility. Each decision, each conversation, each moment of support was shaping him, and he was ready for what came next. The team continued to falter without Jacob, and the whole school felt the pressure as the championship loomed. Jacob trained daily at the park field, his kicks getting sharper with every session, Logan there to snap and encourage. The internal doubts still surfaced at night, but he pushed them aside, focusing on the work. His family dinners became less tense, his dad asking about practice, and his mom offering support. The relationship with Logan deepened during their evening walks, talking about everything from school to dreams, the bond a source of strength. One afternoon after a good session, they sat on the bench and Logan said, "I believe in you, Jake, no matter what happens on the field." The words warmed Jacob, and they shared a quiet moment, the sun setting behind the trees. The school attitude began to shift slowly, a few teammates nodding at him in the halls and the whispers fading. Jacob met with a counselor who helped him process the outing and the loss of friends, the sessions giving him tools to handle the emotional weight. Logan joined one session, and they talked about coming out together in the future, the conversation bringing them closer. The team called a special practice, and the coach invited Jacob to observe but not participate yet. He watched from the sidelines, feeling the pull of the game, but also the pride in his own path. That evening, he and Logan trained alone, and the session ended with laughter as they raced across the field, the joy reminding Jacob of why he loved the sport. The family reconciliation progressed when his dad attended church and came home talking about acceptance, the conversation a small but meaningful step. Jacob felt the growth inside him, the shift from crisis to confidence. The week ended with the team losing again, and the coach calling Jacob for a private talk. The coach admitted the mistake and offered him a spot for the championship if he wanted it. Jacob said he would think about it and left with mixed emotions. Logan listened that night and helped him weigh the pros and cons, the decision feeling like a turning point. Jacob chose to accept, and the news spread quickly, changing the school dynamic even more. The training intensified, and Jacob felt the team slowly warming to him, some guys apologizing for the silence. The bond with Logan remained a constant. They met at the cafe after practice, sharing laughs and plans, the romantic connection evident in their smiles. The internal conflict resolved as Jacob realized the outing had forced him to grow in ways he never expected. The days led to the game, and the tension built, but Jacob felt ready, the support from Logan and family giving him strength. The story was not over, but the chapter of doubt was closing, and the one of triumph was beginning. The championship week arrived with the town buzzing, and Jacob back in practice, the team working through the awkwardness. The coach ran special teams drills, and Jacob nailed every kick, the rhythm coming back naturally. Logan watched from the stands after his own practice, and they met afterward to review the plays, the conversation turning to personal goals beyond the game. The family fully supported him now, his dad even helping with gear, and his mom baking team snacks. The school attitude had changed noticeably, classmates congratulating him in the halls, the change gradual but real. Jacob felt the pressure, but also the pride in his journey. One evening, he and Logan walked the rooftop of the school building, overlooking the field of view, inspiring them to talk about the future. The moment was filled with affection and hope. The team meeting before the game was emotional, the coach addressing the past and the players shaking Jacob's hand. The misunderstanding with Mike was resolved when Mike approached and apologized, the friendship starting to mend. Jacob felt the weight lift and the growth complete. The game day dawned bright and the stadium filled early. Jacob warmed up with Logan nearby, the support steady. The first half was close, and the team fought hard. At halftime, they huddled, and Jacob felt the unity. The second half brought challenges, but the team stayed focused. With minutes left, they were down by 2, and the coach called for the field goal attempt. Jacob lined up, the snap came, and he kicked true, the ball sailing through the uprights as the crowd erupted. The final whistle blew, and the Eagles won the championship, the school rushing the field in celebration. Jacob was lifted on shoulders, the team chanting his name, the attitude completely shifted. Logan found him in the chaos, and they embraced the joy overwhelming. The night ended with a team party where Jacob and Logan stood together openly, the acceptance real and lasting. Jacob reflected on the journey, the pain, the choices, the growth, and felt at peace. The whole school had changed, but more importantly, he had changed too. The celebration continued into the night with the town coming together in a way Jacob never expected. The principal announced a school assembly the next day to honor the team, and Jacob was asked to speak. He stood on the stage with Logan in the front row and talked about the importance of being true to yourself, the words coming from the heart. The applause was loud and genuine, the change in attitude evident in every face. His family attended, and his dad clapped the hardest, the reconciliation complete. The week after the game brought interviews and awards, Jacob handling them with humility, Logan by his side. They took a trip to the beach for a weekend, the sun and waves a perfect backdrop for their relationship to shine openly. The romantic moments on the sand filled Jacob with gratitude for the path that led them there. Back at school, life returned to normal, but better, the team stronger, the friendships deeper. Jacob and Logan planned their future together, the bond unbreakable. The story of his growth inspired others, and the school started a support group for LGBTQ students, Jacob and Logan helping to lead it. The internal conflicts were resolved, the societal pressure eased by the victory and the honest conversations. Jacob looked back on the locker room moment as the start of his real life, the one where he was free. Months later, Jacob stood on the same field where it all began, the grass green and the sky clear. The team had won the state title, and he was headed to college on scholarship. Logan accepted to the same school for art. The family was united and the town proud. Jacob and Logan walked the field hand in hand, the joy evident. The journey had been long with conflicts, misunderstandings, sacrifices, and awakenings, but every step had led to this moment of acceptance and love. The school had changed its attitude, but Jacob knew the real victory was within himself and the relationships that endured. As they looked at the empty stands, Jacob turned to Logan and smiled. They had come so far together. True or false, one public victory on the field can truly erase deep-seated prejudice in a community, or does lasting acceptance require more than a single moment of triumph?